Well, g'day and welcome back to the A to Z of Clarinet. My name is Philip and today we have reached letter F. And F, my friends, is for fingerings. I'm not going to be talking about finger placement or finger posture or even finger tension. What I'm going to be talking about is the choices we make when selecting what fingerings to use. Quite often we find ourselves having to choose between two or more different fingerings for a particular passage in a piece or a moment or a chord or something like that. Now, quite often we fall into the trap of choosing the fingering that is just easiest, it's the easiest fingering to get to. Sometimes we don't even think about what fingering to use and we just use the one we normally do. I think the situation is a bit more nuanced than that. So today I'm going to talk about the 3 rules to follow when selecting a fingering. Now, before we begin, I just want to put something out there. I'm not a fan of the expression or the concept of alternate fingerings. Now, to me, alternate fingering suggests that this is the correct fingering for C and this is the alternate fingering for C. I don't think that's right at all. I think that in some cases, this is the correct fingering for C, and in some cases, this is the correct fingering for C. I don't think that we should have these default settings in our fingering systems. I think that can make us a little bit lazy and make things a little bit predictable. I think we should always be thinking about what fingerings we choose, why we choose them, and that will help inform our playing and our technique. So now let's get into talking about the rules of clarinet fingerings. Rules number 1 and 2 are sort of fundamental rules associated with the design of the French system clarinet. And rule number 3, if you're not already using it, is going to take your technique and your playing to the next level. Rule number 1 is use one hand at a time. Now, the French system clarinet, like this one, has at least 17 keys and 6 rings. Mine has 17, yours might have 18 or 19. Remember, I'm a simple guy. And having all of these keys operated by the pinky keys allows us to play in all the different keys with fluidity and facility. Now, unlike some other systems of clarinet, like Wurlitzer or Ola or the Albert system, we often have a choice of which pinky finger to use for each key that we're playing in or for each passage that we're playing. Now, sometimes the choice is made for us. For example, on my instrument, I don't have a left-hand D sharp key. So if I'm playing in E major, I'm going to play right hand B sharp, left hand C sharp, right hand D sharp. If I had the left hand D sharp, I could do that either way. But, for my purposes, in E major, if I'm playing the scale, that's the direction I'm going to go. Now, does that mean that if I suddenly have an A major arpeggio in that same piece, does that mean I'm still going to use the left hand C sharp? Well, if I'm playing a descending A major arpeggio and I want to go from the E to the C sharp, it actually makes more sense for me to use the right hand C sharp key rather than the left hand C sharp key. By doing this, we're removing a variable from the equation, that is the variable of using the other hand at the same time. If you only need to coordinate the fingers of one hand, then you reduce the likelihood of making those little blips or slips or whatever. So use one hand at a time. Rule number 2, no flipping, no sliding. Now, back to the number of keys we had. Let's look at these little guys here. These, some people call them bis keys, some people call them fork keys. I prefer the colourful term banana keys. Now, these keys, along with your side keys, use them. These keys exist so that you never have to flip. Now, what do I mean by flip? By flip, I mean lifting up a finger and immediately replacing it with an adjacent finger. For example, going from F natural to F sharp in the clarion register, B flat to B natural in the Chalumeau register, or F natural to F sharp in the Chalumeau register. Now you have a listen to these 2 examples and you tell me which one you think is smoother. Now I can practice that movement and get really, really good at it and make it as smooth as anything. Or I could just use my side keys. Now, by sliding, I mean make sure you're always choosing your right hand and left hand so that you don't have to slide from one key to the next. Now, sometimes this might be unavoidable. There might be a particularly nasty key, and I'm thinking of some of the French orchestral repertoire. We've got some absolutely gnarly moments where there's no escaping it. But in the vast majority of cases, there should never be a need to slide from one key to an adjacent key. Figure out a way to work around it. Don't flip and don't slide. Now that all has to do with the design of the French system clarinet. You know, the French system, or the buffet system, or Böhm system, depending on what you want to call it, that was designed with those two things in mind: the using one hand at a time and not flipping and not sliding. So this third rule is a little bit more in depth, and that is always go for your best sound, and that means intonation. When we get up into the altissimo register, we're immediately faced with a barrage of fingering options. You know, thinking, for example, for top F sharp, we could go for a short F sharp, we could go for a long F sharp, we could even use this one here. Please don't ever use that one there. Same thing goes for G, and same thing goes for all of the notes above that. Now, the harmonic series, being the feisty little rapscallion that it is, means that we have all of these different options. What makes any one of these options better than the others is not how easily we can get to that fingering, but the intonation of that fingering. When we have a choice, it's a little bit, well, I don't want to say lazy, but it's lazy to go for the fingering that just happens to be the adjacent finger or something like that. We really need to think about the intonation and the sound. I was at a trumpet masterclass once, many years ago, and the guy giving the class said something that has stuck with me forever, and that is, a note that has a perfect sound quality is in tune. That really stuck with me, and it's so true in the altissimo register. If we play a note that is the easiest fingering to get to, but it's out of tune, there's no way that we're going to make that note sound good. We have to do all sorts of adjusting to get it in tune, and we're going to compromise the sound quality. Now, if we choose a fingering that is in tune from the outset, we know we can play that with a beautiful sound quality. We can play it nice and relaxed and all of that wonderful stuff. It might be an awkward fingering choice. It might be difficult to get to, but we've got 24 hours in a day. We can practice that. We can always find a way to make the fingering work, technically speaking. If we're having to fight against intonation, we're compromising the sound, and we just can't do that. So go out and grab yourself a fingering chart. There are oodles of these out there. There's the old LeBlanc one. There's the back of the Thurston Clarinet Tutor is a really good one. That's got heaps of altissimo fingerings. Even online resources. I think Heather Roche's website, Jason Alder has some fantastic fingering charts, especially for bass clarinet. But go out, find yourself some fingering charts, and give yourself a list of possible fingerings. Then go and learn your scales and find the best fingering that is most in tune for that key. Now, what do I mean for that key? Well, let's take that F sharp, for example, that I mentioned before. If I'm playing in F sharp major, God forbid, I could choose, I would probably choose the longer fingering F sharp, because it's generally pretty well in the middle of the tuner on my clarinet with my setup, and it's a long fingering, so it's nice and stable. Now, if, however, I was playing in G major, playing that F sharp up there, I might not want that fingering. I'll tell you what I definitely wouldn't want, and that would be one of the shorter fingerings. This one here, for example, or even just the middle finger. I don't know who uses that. I almost never ever use it unless I'm absolutely desperate. But in G major, the F sharp needs to be quite bright. So using this fingering, even though it's easy to do, is going to be far too flat for that key. But if, God forbid, I was playing the third of a D major triad in the altissimo register, oh my God, how bad would that be? Then I would want the note to be a little bit flat because I've got that major third. So maybe that is a possible opportunity for me to use that fingering. So it's all about choosing the right fingering for the right circumstances. So that's it. It's as simple as that. Those 3 rules. Use one hand at a time. That's going to help you get around the instrument a lot more smoothly. Don't flip and don't slide. That's going to help you, again, with all of that legato. It's going to help make sure that you're agile around the instrument as well, and then going for that best sound, going for the intonation of a fingering is really going to serve you well, not just in your practice and not just in your technical exercises, but in your everyday playing as well. Now that's it for today. I hope you found this video helpful. I hope maybe you've learned something, or it's helped you think about something a slightly different way. I know that when I first heard that go for the best intonation thing, that was a real game changer for me. I look forward to seeing you again next week for G. If you have any questions or any comments or anything you'd like me to make a video on, please pop it down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to get started making some videos that are special requests. And please, I love making these videos, and it's really wonderful to see these videos getting out to a whole bunch of different people. So if you wouldn't mind, please like the video, share the video with your friends, maybe with your students, maybe with your teacher, and subscribe to my channel. I feel a bit weird asking you to subscribe, but I guess that's the way these things go. So look forward to seeing you next week for G, and yeah, take care, and I'll see you soon.